and welcome back to Storytime with Kidzone. I am Miss Shani and we have here
Lilly.
Thank you so much for joining us. I am so happy you are here with us. Now, before we get into today's story, we talked about the Tower of Babel. Can you tell me what the people were trying to build and where they were trying to get to?
They was trying to build a tower to heaven.
All right, and when God realized how focused they were, what did he do?
He tore it down.
Tore it down and they started speaking different languages, right?
Yes.
So they couldn't find a way to get to heaven, which is very impossible, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's get into today's story. Today, Lily, we're going to be talking about Abram's journey. One of the descendants of Noah's son, Shem, was a man called Abram. He grew up in a city called Ur, near the Persian Gulf. After Abram married, he took his wife Sarah, his father, Terah, and his orphan nephew Lot, whom he had brought up as his own son, to live in a northern city called Haran. Both Ur and Haran were bustling places of wealthy people just like Abram, who was a successful businessman. But one day, out of the blue, Abram heard God calling him. Abram, I want you to leave and go to the country that I will show you. Now, Miss Lily, how would you respond to God telling you, I need you to leave and go to the country, and you don't even know the name of the country yet?
I'll be surprised.
Very surprised. I am going to make you the father of a great race of people. It must have taken a lot of faith to do as God asked. Abram sold most of his possessions, packed up the rest, and set off with his wife on a long journey without really knowing where he was going. Not knowing where you're going, how would that make you feel?
Scared.
Kind of scary. You would have to build up your faith to go somewhere God needs you to go, right?
Yes.
Abram did it without questioning and talked Lot into coming too. He bought flocks of sheep, goats, and cattle for himself and his nephew. He hired shepherds too and bought camels and mules to carry tents, belongings, food, and water. After weeks of preparation, Abram led his family and hired helpers away from everything they knew, moving in a huge train south. God led Abram down into the land of Canaan, which is now called Israel. When Abram reached a holy place called Shechem, he heard God's voice say, "This is the country I am going to give to your descendants." Descendants? Abram was mystified. He and his wife Sarai were well past middle age, and although they had always longed for a family, they had never been able to have children. Again, Abram tried not to question God, but to trust once more. They could not stay in Canaan as there was a terrible famine. So God guided the family through the desert to the lush land of Egypt. Here, food and water were plentiful, but Abram found himself in quite another kind of trouble. Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, ordered that Sarai had to become one of his wives. Why do you think that?
Because I think the girl was lonely.
No, she was beautiful and gorgeous, remember? So God sent a terrible disease to strike Pharaoh and his advisors until he changed his mind, and he soon let Sarai go. After that, Abram left Egypt behind and headed north into Canaan, again to a place called Bethel. There wasn't enough grassland for all the animals to graze on, and Abram's and Lot's shepherds began quarreling and fighting over it. There was only one thing for it: the two men split up. Lot went east into Jordan, where he settled at a city called Sodom, while his uncle unpacked his tents and stayed in the countryside of Canaan. After Lot had left, God spoke to Abram again and repeated his vow. Look around you. he said, all this land as far as the eye can see will belong to you and your family forever. And so Abram waited and waited. Seasons came and went, but there was still no sign that he and Sarai would ever have children. Over the years, God spoke to him several times, repeating his promise. It was always when Abram least expected. One night, Abram was sitting outside his tent as usual when he heard God say, look up. You will have as many descendants as there are stars in the sky. Do you know how many stars are in the sky? Just take a wild guess.
I'll say like 1,000.
It could be 1,000. But that's if it was 1,000 stars in the sky, just imagine how many descendants Abraham would have. Another time, after Abram had made an offering to God, he had a terrifying real dream. In it, God walked right next to him, vowing again that he would have a vast, wealthy family and that all the land from the river Nile to the river Euphrates will be theirs. As time went on, Sarai grew concerned that she would never be able to give Abram a child, so she encouraged her 86-year-old husband to have a baby with her maid Hagar instead. Hagar and Abram had a son called Ishmael, but rather than cheering Sarai up, it saddened her. Abram turned 99 years old and Sarai reached 90, and still they had no child of their own. However, God insisted that his promise remained true. I want you and your wife to change your names as a sign of my vow, he said. From now on, you will not be Abram and Sarai, but Abraham and Sarah. Do what I say and trust me, and everything I have told you will come true. You and Sarah will have your own baby. Next year, you'll see. I want you to call him Isaac. So Abraham and Sarah continued to wait. At long last, when Abraham was 100 years old, Sarah had a baby boy whom they called Isaac. Now remember, Abraham was 100 years old. That's old, huh? Everything had come to pass just as God had said. The couple were so overjoyed that they thought nothing could spoil their happiness. But gradually, Sarah became eaten up with envy of Abraham's other son, Ishmael, whom he had with Sarah's maid Hagar. There had been trouble between the two women ever since Hagar had become pregnant. Because she was carrying Abraham's baby, Hagar had put on airs and graces and looked down on her mistress. Sarah had become so annoyed that she had treated Hagar badly, so badly that Hagar had eventually run away. An angel found Hagar weeping by a desert spring and comforted her, convincing her to return. God reassured Sarah too. He said that he would make Abraham and Hagar's son, Ishmael, the founder of a great race. But when Abraham and Sarah had a son, Isaac, it would be his descendants who would be God's own special people. However, when Isaac was born, the rivalry Sarah felt towards Hagar brewed again. Ishmael was about 14 and he was fond of his little brother. But Sarah hated seeing them together. She couldn't stand to be reminded that because both boys had the same father, her maid son was equally important. Get rid of them, Sarah begged Abraham. I don't want Ishmael around, taking what should rightfully be Isaac's. Don't that sound kind of selfish?
Yes.
Very, very, very selfish, right? Abraham was upset because he loved both his sons. He asked God what to do. Don't worry, God reassured him. Do as Sarah suggests. I'll look after Hagar and Ishmael. Trust me. Next morning, Abraham told Hagar that she and Ishmael had to leave. With a heavy heart, he gave them food in a water skin and turned them out into the desert. God kept his word and looked after Abraham's first son and his mother as they struggled to survive on their own. Once, when they were close to dying of thirst, God sent an angel to them with water. God stayed at Ishmael's side as he grew up, and he became strong and brave. Just as God had promised, he made Ishmael the founder of a great nation, the Arabs.
Miss Shannon, I have a question.
Yes, Miss Lily, what is your question?
Why was Sarah being so harsh to Ishmael?
Sarah was being so harsh because in her mind, Isaac was supposed to have been born first so he can inherit the things of Abraham. But since Ishmael was born first, he had the right of the birthright pretty much. So she was being very mean to them because she didn't like him that he was born first. Do that kind of make sense? I know it sounds selfish and mean, but that's what it was. But then she gave Hagar, Ishmael's mother, permission to have Abraham's baby. So that was a lot of bit selfish on Miss Sarah's part.
Yes,
You understand? Yes, it was. Now that was today's story of Abraham's journey. Lily, can you tell me something that you learned from this lesson?
That you should never give up on God and believe in His miracles.
Good job, and you have to have faith, especially if God told you something. Sometimes we want it right then and there, but we have to remember we have to keep the faith and keep going towards God's promise. Don't ever give up on what God told you. So guys, that was today's story of how God's promise came true for Abraham and Sarah, how Isaac was born. Do you have any more questions, Miss Lily?
No.
Did you understand the story?
Yes.
All right. So I hope you guys understand it as well. Do not be mean. Do not be selfish towards your brother or your sister. Be nice at all times. Remember, God do not like ugly. Until next time, guys. Bye.
Bye.